So this is a topic that I think I'm pretty qualified in addressing simply because I've been in practice for 30 years and I also trained over 2,500 doctors in my methods. And this information is very counterintuitive. It's not taught in schools and it is highly effective, as you're about to find out. So if you have these muscle knots in the back of your neck and your shoulders up here or your mid back, you're going to like this video. So what are these knots? Well, they're little balls of contracted muscle. And there's so many gurus out there and so many videos that are talking about you just need to massage the knot, do trigger point therapy, use different massage devices to break up these muscle knots. And yeah, it works for a minute until it comes right back. Now, out of all the patients that I had with muscle knots, I think I had the most problem with muscle knots for years before I figured this out. So massaging these little knots, doing hot packs, cold packs, trigger point therapy, stretching the knots, stimulating the knots, using electrostimulation is honestly, I think, a big waste of time. So here's what you need to know. Muscles always work in pairs. Now, there are a lot of muscles that work together, but there are usually two major pairs of muscle to create motion, okay? You take a look at your arm, you have the bicep that contracts and the tricep that extends, and that creates motion. Now, when we're talking about the back part of the neck, that extends the head back, and then the muscles on the opposing side bring the head forward right here. Now, if we're talking about the upper shoulder area right here, you have muscles that bring the shoulder up, and you have muscles that bring the shoulder down. And when we're talking about the mid-back, we have the muscles that bring the shoulders backward, and then we have these muscles called the pecs that bring the shoulders forward. So the way you need to look at this is that all muscles have an opposing action. All muscles work in pairs, and they are electrically coordinated with nerves, okay? So anytime you stimulate one muscle, the electrical circuits on the opposite muscle has an off switch. So in order for you to contract, the opposing muscle needs to relax. And so we can use that information. So instead of like massaging or doing trigger point therapy on a contraction, why don't we work on the opposite muscle? And guess what? It works like magic. So anytime you have a muscle knot, what you want to do is you want to figure out the opposing muscle, or what's called the antagonistic muscle, and stretch that muscle. And you will find that the muscle that's contracted will melt like butter in a frying pan. All right, so let's start with the back of the neck. So you have these muscles that are all tight. And the name of these muscles, if you want to sound smart, are called splenius capitis and splenius cervicus, otherwise known as the muscles in the back of your neck. So anytime you have tightness in the back part of the neck, you want to stretch the front part of the neck. Now, you can very simply just do this, going back, okay? You probably stretch that maybe 5, 6, 7 times, okay? And then notice how your neck feels. But there's another muscle called the scalenes, which is on the front part of the neck right here. And to stretch that one, you're going to rotate and tilt back like this. And you do the other side. And you're usually going to find one side that's a lot tighter, and that's the area you're going to work on. And then when you compare that to the back of your neck, you're going to feel it's really, really loose. So in this video, I really want to just kind of teach you the concepts. As far as how many times to do it and how long to do it, that all depends on how bad it is. You know, you can stretch for maybe 10 to 30 seconds, and you can do that 3 times just to keep it really simple. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the knots in the upper back. This is really, really common. It's usually in the trapezius muscle or a muscle right underneath it called a levator scapula muscle. And both these muscles do a very similar action of just raising the shoulders like this, right? So if you're sitting behind a desk all day doing this, you can imagine those muscles are going to be tight. So now the question is, what muscle does the opposite? What muscle pulls the traps downward? Well, it just so happens both of those muscles that bring the shoulders up are opposed by the muscle called the latissimus dorsi. And this latissimus dorsi attaches to the back of the humerus right here, back of the arm, and then comes down onto the rib cage and then attaches to some other connective tissue underneath the arm. And so to stretch the lat muscle, there's many different ways. You can hang from some bar to stretch this muscle right here. If you don't have a bar, you can actually take a simple chair and get on your knees and bring your elbows on the chair, and you can basically extend the arm up to the head. And so you're stretching this space underneath your arm, this distance right here, and you're pulling the latissimus dorsi. So it creates a really nice stretch. So if you have tightness in the upper shoulders and you stretch the lat, just notice how loose that's going to feel. And so instead of having someone start massaging and just beating up this muscle up here, you stretch the opposing muscle, your lats. Honestly, if I had a choice between doing the stretch on the chair or hanging, I like hanging because that really can stretch the latissimus dorsi and give you tremendous relief in the, not just on the trap right here, but also on your shoulder. Now, there's another muscle that I would recommend stretching. It's called the latissimus dorsi. These are muscles on top of the rib cage that attach to the back of your scapula. And the simple way to stretch it is to sit in the chair sideways and bring your arm over the back part of the chair, and then take your upper torso and stretch in the opposite direction. Okay, so you're stretching the upper torso in the opposite direction, and you're going to stretch your scalenes while you're sitting up nice and tall. What that's going to do, it's going to create the stretch that's going to melt the trapezius muscle as well as the muscle right underneath that. So that's a really good stretch as well. And you can stretch and hold for 30 seconds and do that just 3 times. And you'll see some amazing results. Okay, so now let's just move to the mid-back. There are 2 sets of muscles called the rhomboid muscles. They bring your shoulder bones, which are your scapulas, backwards right through in here. Okay, and they bring them up too, but they kind of bring them back this way. And so the muscles that oppose that are your pec muscles. Okay, these muscles in the front part. And so a really good pec stretch would be in a corner of your room where you're bringing your arms up and then you're pushing your chest forward to stretch the pec muscles. Now you can also do this in a door frame as well, but basically you just get into stretch mode and you just stretch and hold for 30 seconds and then do that again 3 times. And notice how your rhomboids, your mid-back will feel really, really good. All right, so those are the 3 areas of your body that have knots and some stretches that you can do. However, okay, hopefully you made it this far in this video because 80% of all these knots are really being referred by your digestion, okay? Something in your digestive tract, mostly the gallbladder, and many times it could be the little tubes or ducts between the liver and the gallbladder that are filled with sludge, and that backs up to the liver, which creates referral tightness in your rhomboid, especially on the right side, in your trap or your levator scapular muscle on the right side, can be on the left side too, or the neck muscle right through here. So if you are going to stretch and you're not feeling a lot of change or relief, then you better put attention on the digestive system. So let's say right now you have some neck tightness or upper trap or right rhomboid pain. This is what I want you to do. Take your hands and massage underneath your right rib cage, just off the center. Just feel around there and feel for the tightness and press in and hold to your tolerance for about 20 seconds, okay? So do that right now. And then notice if that gives you some relief. Now we know your problem is coming from your digestive system, which means that there's something you're eating that you probably shouldn't be eating. And so for those people that are new to what I recommend for eating, I put that link down below because that's going to ultimately correct this problem. But most of the time it's a gallbladder problem. And I'm not talking about stones. I'm talking about just your bile is too thick. It's called bile sludge. And the best way to loosen that up is to use a very high quality bile salt supplement. And that will help loosen up this sludge so it can drain out and it'll give you a lot of relief. So I just gave you a complete solution on what to do for these muscle knots. And I think the next most important video is to show you how to do this manual type therapy on the gallbladder. So I put it up right here. Check it out.